recorded June 3rd, 2024, the first episode of June. And oh my goodness, we have a new face on the show.
Howdy.
Who is that? Who is that over there?
It is I, Ray, hungry like the wolf from. Happy to join you.
Hungry like the wolf. That's awesome. I introduced that song to my 15-year-old. I think it was this weekend because we have like an 80s station on the radio, and that came on. I'm like, this is great. But you listen to the words, it's like pretty much nonsensical unless you understand what the 80s were about.
Duran. I mean, their name. Come on, you can't really expect.
Yeah.
But did you get down to Duran in your day? Like Depeche Mode, I'm sure, Rod, that you have some moves.
I'm not a dancer. I'm a lover, not a dancer. I think that's possibly the phrase I might have used in the 80s because I have no rhythm, which is interesting because my youngest son, he's a professional drummer. And so I don't know where he got that. It must have been my wife, but to be honest, I don't think that's the case either. Just by experience, but that's a whole other discussion. But Ray, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome to the show. This is your first show.
It is. And I'm super stoked to be here. And I feel very honored and very humbled and privileged. All the cheesy stuff. It is extremely genuine for me. I'm naturally an introvert. My least favorite thing is to be perceived. So like, please, nobody. I'll create novels and post them on the internet and my manifestos, but to be seen as somebody who has something worthwhile to say and to help build the community is something that's so extraordinary. And I really am incredibly excited to be here with you and Ed and Brody. Obviously when Brody is able to join, and Ed will be joining us shortly. So thank you so much for having me.
Brody, Edward is supposed to show up a little bit later. Who knows? He's probably selling something right now. But Brody is not with us tonight, and we've talked about this all along. But guess what?
Little Brody
is a new dad.
Congratulations, adorable.
So it says Elise on there, but I forget what the full name is. I'll have to look that up. I was hoping it would actually be on that picture, but it's not. But that's a beautiful name, and Brody is a celebratory father. Look at that.
Gorgeous.
9 pounds, 7 ounces and 20 inches. That's a big baby. Oh,
beautifully healthy and robust. And that is the most important thing. And mommy's doing great. Yep. Daddy's doing great. So incredible.
Yep. And we're going to try something new. Looks like Edward's dialing in from the car. Let's bring him on. Edward, we started the show without you, but we knew that you'd be able to fill any gaps that we missed. Oh, and he's muted, and he's still trying to figure out how the headset works. So let's just continue. Yeah. We're going to try something new for the show this month and maybe ongoing, in that we're going to bring the guest on a little earlier in the show, and then kind of our speaker banter we'll save for the end when we have more time to just goof off. So if that works for everyone. Ray, would you like to introduce our guest for tonight?
Sure. Yes. So here we have, I know him as Professor Zambotti. Michael Zambotti is a professor of cybersecurity at Utica University. I know that we've wanted to put together a series on educators in cyber, and what better day than today to kick that off. And so thank you so much, Mike, for joining us.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Edward. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, particularly last minute. That was super awesome. It would have been just us because we had one of our guests, Akto, which is they do cybersecurity for AI. They were going to be on the show today, but Mike, you and I were talking a little bit earlier, it is a Monday. Nobody checks their schedule until like Monday morning, right? Yeah. Nobody checks on the weekend. And then, so this particular company did the same thing. And they're like, oh my goodness, I forgot. I'm so sorry. But we will reschedule them. I know people were looking for that. Reschedule them probably August or September because our shows fill up, schedule fills up quick. But Mike, so thanks so much for being on. This is something that we have talked about, and actually, our audience has requested more information about as far as educating cybersecurity. So I appreciate it.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now, Edward.
Yes.
It's a Monday.
It is. It's all day. All day. It is Monday. So we're with you.
So Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. This is your chance. If you never do this, you get to brag on yourself, and then tell us about your connection with Ray. And if you have any really good stories that we could share, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am a career changer. I came into cybersecurity as a second career, and teaching in particular. So I started out. I went to college and got a finance degree, and I was a financial advisor, managed money for about 10 years. And back in the mid 2000 teens, I said, wow, this cybersecurity thing sounds pretty interesting. So I pursued a master's. Said, this is neat. Let's go. I'm a glutton for punishment. So we'll go take some classes, and we got this master's degree. And I like the program so much. I said to the people at the school at Utica, I said, I would love to be affiliated with the program. So I was a TA for a class. And then all of a sudden a spot opened up. They said, could you take over this other class, which I had Ray in class. She did very well. I said, absolutely. That was about 7 years ago. And I've been teaching online at Utica for the past about 7 years. And I was also consulting. I was working for a managed services provider, consult IT and security consulting for defense contractors, professional services companies, law firms, and so forth. And about 3 years ago, I made the move to teach full time. So I teach at a small university in Pennsylvania, St. Francis University as well. I teach there in person, and then I teach online at Utica. So
this is interesting. You said it was kind of a indirect career path to cybersecurity, but I might suggest that it wasn't, because when you go to school for finance, you're looking for, depending on what area of finance, you're looking for loopholes, you're looking for anomalies. And isn't cybersecurity sort of kind of the same thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of overlap, and working with, some financial services companies, it was great for me to have insight into the actual business. I think as cybersecurity professionals, our technical chops are very important, but it's also important to understand how the business works, how a business that we're trying to protect makes money and does its thing. So that was good. So, yeah, I mean, I've always had a connection to technology, even going back in the day. I had my Commodore 64. If you remember, I got the Compute magazine and Compute Gazette. Which
my goodness. Computer Shopper. Did you ever get Computer Shopper? It was that thick. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you would compute in Compute Gazette. You would type in programs. So it's kind of how I learned BASIC, and I would learn some different things. And I always had a connection to technology. And then, also finance, and ultimately I chose that as a path, but then, switch back and forth. And I'm very, very happy with the direction that I've gone in the field. I get a lot of the technical side of things, but also my passion is working with people, helping them achieve what they want to achieve, helping them achieve their goals. Nothing satisfies me more, makes me happier than to see somebody graduate from our program, or get a job, or get a promotion, or as Ray has done, randomly sends me phishing emails, which is awesome. Every once in a while, I just get this email, and it's like a phishing email. I'm like, oh, okay.
She's testing you. Yeah, she's like, Yeah.
It's all white hat. I'm not a threat actor. Okay, this is all for the good.
Exactly.
Of the security program.
Right.
It's giving you examples of what not to do for your class. Yeah, don't accept anything from this person ever. Something like that.
So, Michael, you say that you sort of backed into this career, but it doesn't really sound that way. I mean, the timeline, as you remember it, sort of validates that. But it sounds like you've been a lifelong technologist, and you went and got a finance degree. Then you came back home.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Even going, having I remember my first computer was we used to call them IBM clones, or PC clones.
Mm-hmm.
I remember those, the beige boxes. And it was my dad bought this computer. I think I was 10. And the guy, I remember whenever we picked it up, the guy said the hard drive it has a 30 megabyte hard drive, but he's like, you'll never fill this up. You'll never need this much storage, but it's there. And this is pre-Windows, monochrome monitor. And my dad actually got a little IBM sticker and put it on the beige box, and so it would look like an IBM computer, because that was the thing back then. Oh, yeah. And it just playing around with those things. It was just, as we even thinking back to how technology has changed over that 30 years, it's just unreal. Now we have our computers telling us what to do. Type it in and say, well, what should I do with my day? And chat GPT.
I think you lost a few years there. It's been longer than 30 years, I have to tell you. I'm going to warn you.
So, Michael, when you pursued your master's degree, the question is sort of moot now. I was thinking you were strictly a finance person and went and got a master's. I'm like, wow, you blew through it, but you had the technical chops. You went out and the master's degree modernized your skills and brought you up to where the current things were and helped you focus on what you wanted to do. Okay. But if someone was doing that, would you think it's sort of viable to someone who's already have an undergraduate to go directly into a master's to try to get that knowledge? I think that would be a steep learning curve for a person who wants to change careers and who may not have the technical chops you have. I'd like to know your thoughts on that, because I hear lots of midlife, early life, just say, hey, I want to get into information technology. I want to do this. They already have the undergraduate. They want to directly go into a master's program, whether it be a master's in cyber, master's in data analytics, master's in AI now. Is that a viable path to go from not doing that and trying to jump into these expensive master programs?
I think it can be. And I think it really comes down to the person. It really comes down to the person and the passion that they have. I love the fact that, the business and technology or IT or cyber crossover, where you have knowledge of both and can develop a kind of a deep feel for both of those topics. I think I see them coming together, and I see the people in the cybersecurity field who are doing really well. They have a knowledge of the business. They understand, hey, the business is trying to accomplish this. Our job is to not, be the person that says no. It's to enable the business, and to be so. But if you have a deep understanding of how business works, I really like if you have a technology degree in the undergrad program, maybe get an MBA, or vice versa. You have a business degree, look to a more technical master's degree if you can fly it. But certainly it's not the only path. And I would say probably a good idea to work a couple of years between undergrad and masters, get some real world experience working with people, see how things are out in the field.
So I love that. It sounds like you're just super passionate. That, to me, getting a master's, that means you're all into whatever this thing is. So you're passionate about it. Was your goal for the master's so that you could potentially lecture eventually, or was it just, I'm going to accomplish this thing, I'm going to stick a pin in it, and that's exactly what I want to do?
It wasn't. I've always had in the back of my head, even, when I worked with customers for about 10 years as a financial advisor, the educational component, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, and really understanding the why behind whatever it was. And whenever I went to cybersecurity, my goal was to work in the field. I like the consultative nature. I like to find out how I can help somebody accomplish what their goals are, whether it's a student or a business. I did it in consulting. Let's look at your business. What are you trying to accomplish? Okay, let's get you there. Let's get to that point. But that was my path. And I think that there's so many different paths out there. There's some people that will have no technological background, but they'll maybe go to do some self-study. Maybe do a try hack me or some online labs or take a couple certifications and kind of work their way into the field. And I think there's room for everybody. And I love seeing people come from other fields. I think, I'm sure we'll talk about diversity in the field. And I think it's the best thing. Whenever I was a financial advisor, I would talk about, let's diversify our investments, right? We don't put all our money into one stock. We diversify them. We diversify them for a very good reason, because we don't know which stock is going to do great. And, some might do well, some might not do well. Same with our people, having people with different backgrounds. Everybody's going to be better off for it.
Yeah, and that's a
I
very great example. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was
no,
gonna say
okay.
it's
I would say, having been in your class and having you as our professor, you have a very balanced and measured teaching style, and you teach for the student you have, right? So it's obvious there's obviously a curriculum to it, but you do provide that individualized, tailored engagement depending on that student's style. And I'm wondering, that you bring, and not just, having been your student, but I see your social media presence, and you reach out to students as well to build that community. Hey, I have a graduating student who's looking to get into this area or domain. Do you have any recommendations? You have so you're building networks on behalf of others. Like, what fuels you to do that? Because that is a nice to have. That's not a P0. That is not how many professors, instructors, just professionals hold themselves to. It's a very high standard that you're constantly knocking out of the park. Like, what is the recipe for success for you in that way?
Thanks for saying that, Ray. You saying that actually makes me happy. That's my motivation. That's my why. That's at the end of the day. Is there areas in fields that I could go into that I would make more money? I'm sure I could, but it's that seeing somebody really, really happy. It's seeing them maybe start from, hey, I really don't know what I'm doing, to maybe I have a couple conversations with them and they say, I didn't even know that was an option. That's the direction I'm going, to, hey, I just got a job in that particular field. And it's like, this is just such a great feeling. This person did well. And I always tell them, because in my life, I've always had people helping me. And Ray, you mentioned about community. I think that's a great word. Nobody does it alone. Nobody does. I mean, there's some people that will maybe say they do things alone, but nobody does. Everybody has people that help them out. People have helped me out throughout my life. So I want to help those. I want to help other people out too. Why not? It makes, it doesn't take away from me, but it helps the collective. It helps the community.
You're building the pie. We are knowledge workers. If we can't figure out a way for everyone to eat at the table, we are doing something wrong. It is not a zero-sum game. I love it. I remember something that sticks with me to this day, and is many years ago. At this point, you shared one of our final classes together. I think it was maybe even the last module. I personally was going through a tough time, but I imagine other folks, because it was during COVID, I think during the height of COVID, and you shared, hey, class, folks, I came across a study where trees, I think, were planted in an environment where they were not stressed out, they were not exposed to the friction and pollution, etc., and they withered. They did not thrive. But they had fauna that was put in a stressful environment, and my goodness, it flourished. It was thriving. So you are going to be better because of your circumstance, and you're going to be sharper because of it. And it's not a game ender. It could be a game changer. You just lean into it, and it was like a very motivational speech in a cybersecurity class. It sticks with me to this day. I found it so powerful. It gave me the little pep in my step I needed to, get to the next level in my career. Really, like, it was just like, okay, like, maybe I've got the stuff. I've made of tough stuff, and I can withstand it, and I am resilient. And there's evidence to it, right? And so, and everybody loves data-driven kind of reasoning there, but that is what it was like such a detour. Somehow it resonated so deeply. So it made an impact on me and on others, I am very sure. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so happy. And just for Rod and Edward and everybody else, the story that I try to, with my last class, I try to go over a story about Biodome, which is, I think it's in Arizona. It was a big bubble, and they decided to build this awesome environment where anything would grow.
Pauly Shore was in that, right?
I love that movie, but
yes.
Sorry,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I just
love Pauly Shore.
Leaning Tower of Pisa, yes, very Encino Man, yes. Very
and Adam Sandler, they should really pair up. Those two, they could do some work.
Funny.
But Biodome, they created this environment. There was a kind of an artificial environment. It had like fertilizer and water and like sunlight, and it was like perfect growing conditions. And the trees would grow up to a certain point, and the trees would just flop over. And they were like, what's going on here? Why are these trees just flopping over? Everything's great. And what they found was there's no wind inside of the biodome. And what a tree does is wind allows it to develop something called stress wood. It makes the trunk actually stronger whenever it's buffeted by wind occasionally. Now, a hurricane is not good. It's going to knock the tree over, too much stress. But we think of little stresses throughout our lives. Maybe it's not great to inoculate ourselves from little stresses all the time. Maybe those little stresses can be something that makes us stronger, because we progress and we have victories. We have those victories. We say, well, I can do this. I can. I've done it before, and I'm going to do it again. And you become much more resilient. And I know in cybersecurity, resiliency is a huge word, we're probably not going to prevent all the attacks, but we are going to be resilient whenever we have one.
You mentioned something about community and doing that. And I've been doing this a long time too. And you're right. I had a lot of help, but when I go back and reflect on it, most of the help I had, I didn't enter technology with security. It was traditional, whatever IT was at the time, system administration, databasing, programming. And within the last, 10, 15 years, I've been hyper-focused on security. So and I've had some, nobody goes 100% without help. So I've had some assistance and mentoring and everything else. I can remember one gentleman in particular, Dino Sims, who sort of introduced me to it by saying, hey, go stand up this checkpoint firewall on the kill blocks. I had no clue on BSD. Shout out, Dino, if you're listening. But let me ask you this about diversity. Well, I would talk about diversity makes us stronger in this technology arena. But this seems an oxymoron with cyber. It still seems the toughest club to get into, regardless of experience and these things. And I'm loving what I'm hearing more, that the diversity doesn't need to start at the company. The company, for whatever it may do, and there are some companies that are absolutely honest in their mission statement and what they're trying to commit to what they're doing, but that's not their mission. And so they will try, but the hiring manager or the people that you're going to work with don't have diversity as their first line of making sure that we can do our job. I love that at colleges you have this exposure and a lot of connections. That's why they say you go to college, right? I didn't learn anything in college. You network and you remember people for life, and it's who you know. Is that the new trend where the networking and the entry into some of these industries start when you go back as a second career or a auxiliary career? Because I'm seeing we got to have another way to get people into cyber. Who can only go so far. Diversity and hiring initiatives in companies, understanding what their mission is, can only go so far. But I truly don't think that we are using the educational structure to be able to introduce that in there as much as it could be. Now, maybe if you're saying that grabbing undergrads who are choosing these curriculums as their discipline at the very beginning, yes, but they're not professionally connected. They don't know anybody. They're young. They're 18 to 24. Nobody. These professionals who are already established, like yourself, big time financial advisor, I'd imagine when you got your thing going, you could probably call someone and say, hey, this is Michael. Hey, yeah, I'm just getting ready to call you. I got another $1 million. Well, I don't do that anymore.
That would be nice. I would.
Well, you can take Rod as a client. He just got millions laying around. He's doing nothing with. So my question was, with that little context was, is this another viable way to introduce people and get them inserted into this industry by saying, hey, not only are you coming here to get knowledge to make you able to do the job, but do you guys make an effort to connect them like the way you would do an undergrad inside these master programs particularly in your class? How do you go about connecting individuals who give them an opportunity out there in the field?
No, Edward's a great point. And I would even say prior to undergrad or master's programs, even into high schools, I think it starts earlier. And I think even into grade schools, it's having people understand that this thing is a possibility. This is a field that you can go into. And the field is really broad. I did a couple boot camp. It was like the summer academy a couple years ago, and it was for high school students. And I started out, the first couple minutes, you introduce yourself. We talk about some foundations of cybersecurity. I introduced the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. One of the students put up his hand and he's like, "When do we start to learn how to break into computers?" It was like, and that was his mindset of what cybersecurity was. And I look at it as somebody says, "I want to get into cybersecurity." To me, that question almost seems like I want to get into sports. Okay, I want to play a sport. Because the field is so broad. You think about all the people that that work in cyber or some connection to cyber, and all the things that they do. And whenever people look at the field, it's kind of blinders because they say, "Oh, well, Mr. Robot," which is an awesome show, War Games, best movie ever. They see that's the hacker. Okay, that's what the hacker is. And I think it's explaining to people what's possible, and also really, computer networking is important. We gotta. That's something you can't defend something you don't understand. But at the same time, the human networking side of things is also so important. And it's important. I always try to incorporate in my classes some sort of discussion or a group project or something to get them networked. Even it's harder now, I think, than it ever was. I think people are more dependent on technology because it's there, and maybe less reliant on interactions, human to human interactions. And as far as advice for somebody who says, I think cybersecurity is a neat field and might be a good fit for me, reach out to somebody. LinkedIn is such a great tool. I have exactly one social media account, and that's on LinkedIn, because I like Ray's posts. That's why I keep it.
Oh yeah,
which are actually really, really, Ray. They're actually really well written and awesome.
I like your posts. Your posts you celebrate the individual, and you know them personally, and you develop those relationships. And I have like lifelong friendships from folks that I met in your class and in the program. But that is the macro community. But it takes folks like you to like, all right, I know you guys you feel more comfortable behind that computer screen and just kind of like doing your assignment, but you need to focus on the core skills. You need to focus on showcasing your humanity, humanizing your experience. There are folks, they have a sales background, but the way they wrote up, and this was before generative AI, the way they wrote up their assignments, I reached out like, "Hey, what are you about?" Like, that's an amazing, like the way they made it so accessible. They had no previous background, career experience in cyber, but they could break down the problem. And I was like, "Oh, okay, you have a future," right? Like when you see that and you're empowered to nurture those relationships, it's game changing. Cybersecurity. Yes, it's a technology based field, but it's also a relationship based field. It's the best people that I've seen in any IT or cybersecurity or any technology based job is the best people say, "I don't know, I'm going to ask a question." They don't know everything. And I know imposter syndrome is huge in our industry. And it's, I like to tear down that wall and say, if you ask questions, it doesn't make you look weak. You don't look bad. You actually look really smart whenever you say, "I don't know everything, I'm going to ask somebody." And do the same, LinkedIn, reach out, say, "You know what? SOC analyst seems like a pretty cool field, but I don't know that much about it. So let me reach out to a couple of people who are SOC analysts. Let me follow them and reach out to them and just ask them questions. Hey, what's a good day look like for you? What is a great day? What's a challenge? What did you find and overcome? Some questions about the field specifically, because sometimes, and everybody's probably gotten these messages. How do I get into cybersecurity? How do I love this, break into it? Like it's a bank, right?
Break into it.
Well, and I think a lot of the gap sometimes is understanding exactly what a day in the life looks like. Because that's really hard to tell someone, and particularly someone wanting to get into cybersecurity. Now, going back, I'm just going to clarify. Earlier, you said people, do they still think it's about hacking, wearing the hoodies and hacking computers, or are they coming to the conclusion that it's protecting computers these days?
It depends on the person, maybe their exposure to it. And it's a high school student saying that. So, hey, I don't expect a high school student to know everything about the field. So maybe they saw Mr. Robot and said, "Wow, that seems like cybersecurity. That sounds pretty cool." But it's, brought them to the field. Back in the 80s, Okay, I love the '80s. I wish like
Oh,
every
yeah.
movie in the '80s is like awesome. But Wall Street was a big movie, right?
Greed is
Everybody's-
good.
Greed is good, right? What a great movie. And what did that what did that lead to? A lot of people wanted to be traders, right? Everybody, oh, I want to go work on Wall Street, become a trader. Well, there's so many more jobs on Wall Street than being a trader. Traders are, I mean, it's a cool job, but there's so many other jobs that you could do. And I think cyber is the same. I think people found out about the field and they're like, oh, this is neat. They have the introduction, and it's our job as professionals in the field to be the hand out, reach the hand and help them up and say, well, hey, here's some things. What do you like to do? What are you interested in? And this is a job. Maybe they say, hey, I'm kind of technical, but I really like policy because I like compliance. Maybe we can find that one person who loves reading NIST documents. And we can point them towards maybe a GRC, right? Governance, risk, and compliance type position, and say, well, this is cybersecurity too. You still need technical knowledge, but maybe this is something that is passionate. Will fit your passion. I said, wow, I didn't even realize that was a thing. It's becoming a much bigger thing.
Interesting things you guys related that to, Wall Street. Greed is good. Go and get go. Absolutely. But I had a young man years ago, and he wanted to go into finance. And so we were talking about something. We were reading Freakonomics, and I said, hey, here's an additional book that I found really interesting. It was called Flash Boys. When he read it, he became enamored about the ability to do electronic trading and the physics of being closer to the trading by virtue of high-speed networking, people buying buildings, because nanoseconds mean money. And he decided to go into networking. He was super fascinated by global networking speed and ended up grabbing a job at Siemens and then Qualcomm because he got away from finance and said, hey, is it really possible that my trade would go in before someone else because I am physically closer to them by virtue of where I put this insertion point to trade on whether it be Bloomberg, the Swift network, or whatever it may be, right? And he got into technology because of that, and he was fascinated by it. Good book too. Read Flash Boys. You haven't read it.
Yes, that's the one where they were actually buying rights of ways to put their own fiber optic lines, right? Because it was going to be a quicker. And that's like, okay, who can have the shortest patch cables, and everything is like every little bit of, because it's physics, right? How quickly the signal is going to transfer. So yeah,
people were buying buildings because the physical proximity meant 100 meters less the light had to travel, and using privates not over the probe circuit certified. I'm like, it makes sense, but who would have thought of that, right? Somebody smart.
Yeah, all the real estate around the exchanges went up because they were co-locating the server farms right near it. Yeah, that's a great book, and I love that somebody like that has interests a couple different. I heard one time, think about it as like pools of water, and we start to see them fill up, and as they fill up, the pools start to connect, and we can start to see, what you're interested in is probably connected to other things. Let's see how we can maybe put those two together. I have a couple interests. How can we put those two together? And really develop a passion for the particular outcome that you're pursuing.
The breakdown of your class is you've been teaching a while. It still seems to be a huge deficiency and deficit of women and minorities, period. We've been talking about this till we blue in the face, and then come back to being brown in the face and then blue in the face again. What do you perceive? And maybe your class is not like that, because are you teaching upper level, or are you teaching at the master's level or undergrad?
Both. Yeah, graduate and undergrad.
So you have two different demographics of data you can look at. Let's talk about the undergraduate. Are you still seeing that? People say, well, how do you know if the deficit when you don't know what the right number is? Well, you can look in there, let your eyes do the eye test. Are you still seeing that happen, that you're not getting enough young women into it, and then more people of color to come into the technology field?
Yeah, Edward, I think that is an absolutely huge, it's a great point. And it's one that I've struggled with as far as what is the solution to this problem. It's a problem. I look out at my classes sometimes and I'll see, 20 students and 18 males and 2 females. And, I think we need a balance. We need a balance. It doesn't make us great if everybody is the same, if we all are thinking the same things. And I had a student actually got you can't see it because it's vanished. It's my Women in Cybersecurity little kit that one of my students went to the Women in Cybersecurity conference in Nashville.
Yeah.
last couple months ago, and she was really excited about it. Really doing a ton of stuff with the women in cybersecurity. I would say any women or young ladies in grade school or high school, that's a group that can really help you understand that this is something for everybody. This isn't for, just one particular demographic. Anybody can learn this stuff. And I was so excited that she brought that back for me and that she went to the conference, and to see that. I have two daughters. I have 15-year-old twins. Okay, that's why sometimes if I turn my head wrong, you see gray, because they were talking about their driver's licenses, and now it's going to be like falling out or something. Yeah. Things are not going to go well. But talking to them and say, well, hey, technology is a field that this is possible. This is great. It's a great field. There's so much stuff you can do in it. Oh, you like working with people? Sales. What about, everybody wants to be in that maybe specific technology, like the pen tester. But what about people that work in sales? That's a great part. You want to communicate, have those relationships. But Edward, I do think about that question a lot, and anything that I can do, I work with a military charity called Hire Heroes USA, which we help veterans who are transitioning out of the military and into cybersecurity. And I'll meet with them over Zoom or Teams, meet with them over Teams, or whatever mechanism that we can, and to get them geared up and kind of locked in for the civilian life, and having those. And I do come across more minorities coming out of the military, and I really like to see that. I like to see that progression. I like to see them.
I participate in a similar program. We have it, they have it at Microsoft and a few others that are non-related to the employer. But let me give you my perspective on it, and big shout out to the Microsoft Security Insights show, because second year that we've done Women in Cyber Month. Woo-hoo, go back and check it out.
And we doubled up.
We doubled up this year from 4 episodes last year to 8 this year, and I don't know if we'll double up again. Right? It seems to be a lot of traction. But I like to do metaphorical things. Trying to give a direct context is lost. So let me compare why I believe you're not seeing more women. The aspirational levels are too high.
Tell me more, Ed.
I think that the way that we portray women who've absolutely killed it in cyber is always the Ann Johnsons. It's always those who are at the highest level. That's like telling a high school, middle schooler, there is nothing other than playing pro.
No, I think we need to start with the attitude. I think we tell women to this day that they are defiant, that they are disrespectful if they pull the thread, if they have a certain perspective, point of view, comportment that is more classically or more traditionally associated with a masculine way of being. And it's still, I think Gen Z is doing a lot to recalibrate and adjust our lenses there. And I give them so many kudos, but we need to do better at that. Like if somebody comes in hot, if somebody has a level of intensity that's not necessarily what we would expect of somebody more demure or more human focused, like, we need to create space for them to exist in their glory, in their excellence, just as they are. And then also help refine, like make sure that their message hits, that it's resonating as powerfully as possible.
Yeah, we need to celebrate it. Women in cyber, or women in technology, or women in any of these things that have been predominantly dominated by males, white males, earlier. We shouldn't have to wait until they are senior managers.
1,000%.
Men get celebrated by making a promotion to director. You think they invented the internet, right? But when a woman comes into it, it's like, oh well, she's that normally, right? We're not really going to measure her success until we can see her speak at RSA. Even though, you get where I'm coming from. We need to celebrate the journey more than the completion for women and minorities in it. I shouldn't have to be a standout as an African-American male because I finally became a CEO of a major company, right? It could be that I contributed something. I've done this. I do these things. I think that the celebration doesn't occur frequently enough, and it's not applauded enough, and people not recognized enough early. I try to do it all the time when I do participate in these STEM projects, that primarily around young ladies trying to get in early, girls that code, black girls that code, young girls in science. You get them used to the accolades and the achievement much earlier.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh yeah, I can do anything I wanted him to do. right? And I'll do it this way. That's the thing that I've taken my approach. Be the young lady that plays football and beating the hell out of these guys, and they'll let you know, hey, anybody can do it. We just choose not to. That's just my opinion on it. I think we don't recruit early enough, and we don't celebrate and we don't empower early enough. We wait to a certain amount of acumen or competency and dedication is shown, where they'll waste cycles on a man before they throw their hands up and he's a waste, right?
And the goalpost is ever moving. Like, oh, you were so close. You were so close.
Charlie Brown's football.
Yeah. So, but I love that, you're teaching this. This is a passion. It's anytime instruction is your main livelihood and your main time consumer, you must love it. Teachers are at every level are underappreciated. They just are. They do not. They people don't get it, right? How often do you run? You're doing undergrad and grad at the same time? Is there a natural progression that when someone comes out, maybe a program at your college is undergrad, they come to your master's program, or they unrelated? You teach in two different schools.
Oh, two different schools. Yeah. St. Francis is the school I teach undergrad, which is out in Middle Pennsylvania. A small Catholic school out there, and then Utica University in the graduate program. So I don't really see any crossover between those two, and which is good. Like, again, we talk about diversity. I think it's important to diversify your own education. And, sometimes people will say, how much is college really worth? Do I need college? I can learn this on YouTube. And, college is about the classes, but college is also about the human side of things. It's about balancing your life. It's about talking to other people and having those conversations maybe with people who don't agree with you, and talk and be able to understand your face to face. Let's not text each other. Let's have a talk. Let's see each other and go over these things. But and what, Edward, one other point though about what you were saying, this is not a zero-sum game. This is not a zero-sum field. If one person gets a job, that doesn't mean that the other person can't also get a job in the field. If we support each other, the field grows, the pie gets bigger.
Yes.
That's good for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's been super communicated, but it seems an oxymoron. It seems like something's the math ain't math. And when you're saying you got, let's just make up a number, 2.1 million job openings in cyber, but you don't have enough people to fill it. Something's not math, and we need to figure out where that choke point is, or where that interference is running from, right? And I'm right. I don't believe it's a zero-sum game. I believe people have tried and they've been discouraged and they fall off, and we don't really track that sometimes.
They do, and the discouragement, and I'll see it sometimes. If you look at LinkedIn, sometimes you'll see somebody's post, I've been looking for a job for 6 months and I'm just ready to give up. And it's so you read it and it tears your heart out, to be honest, because this is a person, and they've gotten to the point, they've hit that frustration level, not only in their own head, but now they're manifesting it on for everyone to see. And you feel terrible, and you want to help that person do it. You want to help that person get to the point where they can say, hey, I'm supporting my family, I'm supporting myself, I'm, good, good career ahead of me. And, what can we do to get people that frustration, keep it to a minimum? Because, hey, if I'm doing great and everyone around me is not doing so hot, well, how can I say I'm actually doing great?
Yeah,
that's true. I'm the same way.
And understanding that most jobs are referrals, right? Mm-hmm. I every job that I've ever had, I've been referred by a friend or a colleague or somebody. So I guess it's us. We're not referring our friends to these jobs.
And I think we're letting, the process of HR convolute the selection process, because they throw these unicorn job descriptions out there.
Oh my goodness.
And then you find yourself, I need someone with 20 years AI experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so, when you get the interview pool, you've already clouded the judgment or the decision-making factors of especially that person going to work on your team. Rather than let them read the JD, they should go, I tell people, I've never been fully qualified for any job that I've ever gotten, ever. But when I leave, I'm overqualified. Absolutely I am, right? And so, you should hire people on their potential and their ability to learn. You don't know if that person's propensity to stay up late at night when they get something or really want to get in, and you're passing over great candidates, right? I think college is a great place to identify those non-technical and non-skill soft skills. The person that stays out there and say, Mike, can I, Professor, I'm gonna butcher your last name, Zambotti.
Yeah, you got it. Perfect.
Oh, first time. Look at that, Rod.
Yeah.
I never get
I
names.
didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
That wants to stay and talk to you out the class, not because they didn't understand something, they want more. Or what would you suggest in that? And that's the person I love talking to, because it makes you learn. So, but yeah, we the math is not mathing. Somebody's making up numbers, and we got all these potential openings, especially with the emergence of AI, right? That just even more jobs. So, I would think anybody who's on this effort, who wants to be gainfully employed, should, and this is not socialism, should have the opportunity to work and go out and let them do it. Let them fail or succeed on their own merits, right?
And another problem that I kind of identify is a lot of organizations. Microsoft's the same, right? I love working here, but the recruiting process sucks because they outsource the recruiting, and unless you have certain keywords in your resume goes to a pile over here somewhere that nobody ever looks at, and that's just ridiculous. Because there are a lot of people out there. During Women in Cyber, Maria Young, who was on, I absolutely loved what she said. She applied to everything. She ignored.
And you're going to get rejected. You're going to get rejected left and right, and you have to build up those emotional calluses. It's a thankless job. Yeah, Ed, you were sharing that teachers, it's a thankless profession, right? Same with cyber, right? You are doing the good work of protecting others. Nobody goes into this field to be millionaires. They do. It's a noble pursuit. It really is. And when I talk to folks that are, in healthcare, and they're in the, head of the cyber team there, the managers of the SOC, they do it, even though it hurts their soul. They have to deal with the administrative burden of, you have all this stuff that you have to, the HR bureaucracy. They do it because they know that it's important work to do. But you have to have, tough skin. You have to be made of sterner stuff to be able to withstand the rejection and the, you don't have the right pedigree. I have been told I don't have the right pedigree so many times. I'm questioning, is this like PETA? Where are we? Is this like an animal shelter? Why are you out talking to me about my pedigree? We're like, what is going on? So you have to just be like, rain on a window pane. You're going to say some stuff to me. It's not going to matter, because I'm going to visualize my win, and I'm going to get it come hell or high water. You're going to want me to get it by the end, because I'm going to be a pain in your behind. That's the kind of drive that you need.
And I think another thing, Michael, that I applaud you left an industry that, I don't know, you never count another man's money, but I'm sure you were doing well to come into an industry that had a history of, you're not going to be the most compensated in a great realm of how corporate America is versus your experience and your education, but you chose to do it anyway. Ray, I would disagree with you on one thing you said. Not fully disagree. It can be a thankless and sometimes underappreciated, but make no doubt, the bean counters have learned how to absolutely monetize cybersecurity. It is a money industry now. Absolutely, it is.
Business enabler, yes.
Oh yeah,
yes. Number one business enabler for sure. Yes.
Oh yeah.
And that's what
the joke was. Nobody ever gave you a bonus because you didn't get hacked. How do you measure that? How do you quantify good stuff? But now you're starting to figure out how to measure the success of your security programs and the value of your people. Because the only other way would be, okay, that's how you're going to play me. I get all these certifications, get all this Hive knowledge, and then here's your 2-hour notice. Because the only way to be appreciated is to leave. Right? Here's your 2-hour notice. I'm done. So I think that there were some benefits to the high attrition and turnover and stealing of skill sets across industries, because I think it made some of these people homegrown their people and build that loyalty up that, hey, these people hired me on, trained me up, got me here, I'll stay. Now, is that changing now? I'm thinking I'm seeing it go back to, rather than me hiring and skilling up, I'm going to buy the talent. Yep. So I want to say it again.
Edward, you made a great point. I want to go back to, you said that you were never 100% qualified for a job that you applied for. And I would argue, like, for anybody listening or watching, if you're thinking, should I apply or should I not apply? Apply. Do it. Hey, I only meet 50% of it. If you meet 100% of the requirements, you're probably going to be bored. You're probably going to be over qualified for that position. You made 50%, just do it. Go for it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? They say no. Okay, well, you're back in the same boat as you were before you applied.
And show that you have a track record of learning and making an impact and being a contributor. Like, you have to tell your story, and you have to believe it. If you're not like your number one fan, I don't know how you're going to be super compelling to anyone else who's willing to take a risk on you.
And do the due diligence, by the way. Mike and Ray, you're both aficionados at LinkedIn. Do the due diligence, because when you apply for something, go find somebody that works at that place and befriend them on LinkedIn and bug the crap out of them, because I've done that for people that I wanted to refer before. I'll find somebody, hey, this guy's really good, or this lady, and you need to look at this resume, right?
Now, and do the things that you said college was for. Be damn putting on your Letterman's jacket and going rah, 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 Ohio State beat Michigan. Use that contact. If you see that person graduated from that college, that's your end. Hey, I graduated from here. Oh, I did this, with this professor, so-and-so. Tell me more about this job, and just ask. Give me some information about that. What this program looks like. What is your IT team looks like? Some of your leadership. You're right. You're 100% right about that. I do my reconnaissance, but then again, the four of us on here sort of cheat. Part of being a hacker is you go do your recon first anyway. So
that's not cheating. That's literally the fundamentals. You want to be informed. You want to understand the threat landscape. So you're gonna dig into it, and you're gonna say, oh goodness, I didn't realize that they are also a huge sci-fi fan, right? Some people are not. Maybe they really love golf. I don't know anything about golf. I would have to have a different kind of in, or I'd ask, like, tell me more about how, you have to like approach it. And I think that there's a certain level of finesse you have to have. Like, listen, pick a struggle. If you don't have if you're not meeting every ridiculous, insurmountable prerequisite, then at least be an interesting person and reach out to them, be compelling, and make it tough for them to say no to you. Right? Make it tough, like, oh crap, you're so cool and you got it and you have this amazing professional background, especially if you're a career changer, right? You're shifting, right, to cyber for many years doing something else. Make it tough for them, and at least you get to be part of their network, and they will keep you in mind, and they will connect you with someone else. If it's not the right time for you right now for that role, they will connect you with somebody who might be the facilitator to your future.
Well, Mike's a great example. He moved from finance to cyber. Who would have thought, obviously you have the technology background, but nothing's out of reach, right?
Mike got into cyber because he wanted to know if these folks is tracking him, right? They were like, what if they looking at my stuff? SBC's looking at me or something. But Garner
wanted free Netflix, that's all. And that's how
yeah, there you go. Garner a favor without the intention of using a favor for yourself. I've burned through what I call tokens to help someone else out, not to help myself.
Yeah.
Because I say, hey man, remember I did this for you? What can I do for you? I got a buddy, and they're looking, right? And you have to garner those favors to be able to use that, and that is good currency. And because that favor returns to you in full, because I've got a phone call back where someone says, hey man, good looking out. That was a good referral you gave. This guy is really working out, right? This young lady is really working out. And but we could talk about it all day. It seems like we have the solutions. It seems to be lack in desire to execute on these things at a corporate level, because you can say what you want to say. The business of the business is the business. And everybody wants somebody to hit the ground running. First of all, I don't know what would make me hit the ground running. I could have been in that situation in the first place. But I do believe shifting back away from corporate as the sole proprietor or getting things right is not going to work. We need to come back down to the educational landscape of it and start early and get people in, regardless of where they are in their career. I mean, I'm in the fourth quarter of my career, right? I'm down by 1 point. I took the ball on my own 1 yard line. I got no timeout. Both my wide receivers are punked out. My running back's hurt. I'm still going to win. I'm going to win. That's
Yep.
what I do.
And Edward, you know, hitting the ground running, there's a lot of people out there that say, I'm ready to hit the ground running. Just tell me which direction to run. I just need help figuring out, should I run that way? Should I run that way? And maybe that's something where they're asking the informed questions. I love, like what Ray said about somebody coming out up after class and talking about a topic. I just love that. It's like the greatest thing. They're like, I want to do this thing. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And it's like they've shown their passion and they're asking informed questions, and you can really help people like that. Whenever, you know, if you take your own job, you know, you think about what you do all day and somebody came to you and asked some very specific pointed questions about your job, you're going to feel like, wow, this is okay. Now we're into inside baseball. Let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. And you know, Edward, I also like what you said about recon. You know, you think about the cyber kill chain trademark, right? We think about what's the first step is reconnaissance.
Recon.
It's doing that recon. If you're, you know, I like to think like an attacker. I tell my students, if you can have 15%, you know, evilness, keep the 15% evilness, you know, because we're not going to go do evil things. But what would an attacker do in this case? And then maybe, you know, use that to prevent it. But think like an attacker. You want to interview for a company. Well, let's do some recon. Let's look at what we can find out about them. Obviously, don't attack that company. That would be a terrible idea. That's not how you get a job. That's how you get like an orange suit. But do recon. Find out who the boss is. Find out what the org chart looks like. Ask informed and pointed questions about that particular company, about the particular job. And somebody, I think, somebody with initials and a long number put up a comment about HR departments. I do think there's a disconnect between HR departments. I think they ingest 500 resumes and it's an automated process. And then you get to the person, you know, the subject matter expert in a particular department. And it's like, well, how do you filter that? What does that look like? HR's not reading 500.
We should have a recruiter on the show because I follow some recruiters and they will say, Mike, we are human beings reading these resumes. It's not just all automated. So we're going to get there's going to be like a think piece that's published. It's going to be like quoting us. I will say though, that there is a disconnect, I think fundamentally because of the space we're in. And we maybe I have found that folks, regardless of their role within cyber, they're typically a little left of the dial. They're a little, you know, they have a different way of seeing things than other areas of business. And I'm not sure that perhaps HR has necessarily caught up with that or has integrated that into the process. But I'd be fascinated to learn more about it, right? Are there tailored paths for folks like us in this space?
Oh yeah, no, hats off to HR people. I mean, we've all looked at resumes before. I look at a resume in about 10 seconds, my eyes glaze over. I'm thinking, this person didn't do all these things. It's pretty embellished. And I can't imagine reading hundreds of them.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else. There's a lack of corporate, we'll say honesty. It's you know, working in integrity alone. That. Think about this. Think about how much they scaled back the referrals across country. It used to be you wanted referrals because that referral bonus, you would say, hey man, I need you the last 90 days. It's going to be this huge bonus for me. You got the last 90. Almost no one is giving the referrals the ump that they used to, whether the amount is going down or, you know, recruiters used to say, hey, if you give me a referral, that lessens the interview thing by two steps because I'm going to put your reputation, instead of having a 4 session interview, it's down to 2 because this person personally referred you, right? You start to see less of that like it used to be. And I know Rod and I came up through it that your name was like your credit. You kept it really nice because it's easy to screw up. It's hard to fix. So you did the good work. You did these things, right? You know, we've talked about this before, Michael. We've had at least 3 or 4 shows where we're talking about recruitment, diversity, hiring, and things like that. I don't think we're ever going to go a year without at least having 2 shows to talk about this. But I'm interested in the emergence of these new major technologies initiatives where they change the way we go about our business. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, massive data ingestion and analytics outside of that. And, you know, you're starting to see, if you're not following these, you're starting to see very creative programming languages that are able to take advantage of these new scale models and these chip models, right? So I was always fascinated how someone just creates the language. How do you decide that C is the language? How do you decide that Go is the language, right? Who wrote this? I believe those are going to be some major technology drivers that will introduce. It will introduce employment opportunities for those who go the traditional educational route and those who sometimes do YouTube University. I think you're going to have a combination of both, right? And I think it's great for retooling, right? And so we'll do it. This has been really good. You know what, Mike? We love our guests. We absolutely had to make sure they're honest in their integrity. I don't believe anything you said about Ray. I believe she was a bad student, troublemaker in class.
He called me diabolical. He said my fishing exercise was the most diabolical he's seen. And I was like, this is the greatest compliment I've ever received in my entire life.
Ray is diabolical and chaotic. Yes.
Thank you.
That'd be a good. We'll put that on the back of our shirt when we go to a convention, right?
But to see somebody doing that as a project, it's like, this is just something she did. I know she presented at a couple B-sides, and it's like she just took that thread and yanked it out of the wall and just ran with the thread. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow, this is so cool. And I could see it like building on itself. And I was like, oh, this is like really, really neat. And it was like, she wasn't doing this because anybody made her or said, hey, you should do this, Ray. It's right. It's a passion. And it's like, that's the kind of person that you say, who is best for this field? It's somebody who has passion, who has curiosity. Because I bet Ray said, and I think that was one of the things she mentioned, was she just wanted to figure out how this thing worked. Why did it work this way? And it probably wasn't supposed to work this way. You found something that was not supposed to be doing, and that's the hacker ethos right there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's inside of people, and letting out that hacker ethos, finding the direction to send it in and can only do good things
in a pro-social way. Yeah, like this should probably not work this way because we should probably protect people from themselves, because it's just this, and I think I feel like it's a non-shaming space, cyber, often, right? Like we have intrusive thoughts and we're like, if I wanted to, if I could, right? Like I would probably do it this way. But I would never, ever want to do it this way. And I would protect everyone from ever doing it that way or hurting themselves or hurting others, right? And I feel like that is something that is intrinsic, but you could also nurture the technical chops to maintain that and drive that forward. So thank you.
I agree with you. Cybersecurity is one of the places that you are applauded for not following the installation manual. You want to go out and figure out, like, why would you do it that way? The instructor said, no. I noticed something and I wonder if I can, it tells me I have to do it this way. Remember, Mike and Rod, I don't know how old you are, Mike. I know Rod is of age, Ray's young. How many times that we read the manual say minimum requirements to run with this? I said, man, screw this minimum requirements to run on this.
What's a manual, right?
Yeah, it's manual what you pull out when you've broken it and nobody answers the phone. You pull the manual out.
I bet you've probably all broken a lot of things whenever you were like younger and in school. Like I remember all my technology stuff. I was like, well, how's that work? And I was like, well, now it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yes. And I think that it's unforgiving in other parts of technology, whereas you can't break the business process. You can't go around and experiment on Salesforce and SAP and some of these things that affect the line of business, right? You're going to get called and you're going to get a negative promotion. And it's not going to be
you could do everything once.
Yeah.
You are applauded by going in and saying, yeah, I deviated from that, or I did it here, or I went out and I purposely broke it, right? Now you're the smart guy, you're the innovator. So,
well, there's breaking things and then there's destroying things. So I have stories about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. But hey, this has been super great, Michael. It is great to meet you. Unfortunately, you can tell that I'm starting in transit and I got to pick up the transit again and get going. Thank you for coming on, Ray. Thank you for bringing on an excellent guest. You guys stay on. To the rest of the audience, I gotta leave.
All right.
Oh, thanks so much, Edward. Great talking to you. Great conversation. Love the show. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and if you're ever in the Georgia area, Atlanta area, look us up, man. We got cold beer and brown liquor here, and football tickets.
And good barbecue. Last time I was down in Atlanta, got a roast barbecue. Ooh.
We got some decent barbecue down
here.
We'll put it up. Well, you said Toledo. I gotta go. Everybody be good.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah. So Edward's gone. Now we can talk about him. But no, I think this has been a super rewarding, and just based on what we see, and I have to update the number. This is like a high count live audience version of the show. This is great. But just based on some discussions we've had, I think we're going to, just because of this episode, going to bring on an actual recruiter, and we can hammer them with questions and figure out how this whole thing works. Let's figure out the science of recruiting so people can have that as part of their toolkit. Because I think this is huge. This is important because, Mike, you're doing one side of it, but on the other side, sometimes you also need kind of those soft skills, just like Ray was talking,
core skills. Yeah, they're not so. It's hard to show up in a way that you can like humanize yourself, even if you are a pro-social behaved individual. Maybe you're a little bit more reluctant to engage in the small talk. Maybe you only like the big, like, trauma dump on me, but I don't want to hear about what you did over the weekend unless it was traumatic. Like, but you have to learn how to show up that way, because that's how most folks like build the sense of trust, right? So I push back on its soft skills. These are core skills, and they're oftentimes more difficult. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I don't really like the term soft skills, but it is a whole category of things on its own that people just kind of assume that's where that fits. But yeah, I agree completely. Hey, Mike, again, thank you so much for the show. This is your moment as we kind of close out the show. Anything that we left out, something that you would want to ensure that our audience hears about either what you're doing or what you think is super important about the things that you participate in?
No, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I think you guys have an excellent show here. I think it's opening doors for people, and something that people in the industry should tune into. I would just say, for anybody looking to get into the industry, be your own marketing department. Okay, be your own biggest fan. You have to be your advertising yourself. There has to be some degree that there's so many people in the industry willing to help you. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to answer any questions anytime. But you also want to help yourself. You also want to dig your well before you're thirsty. Computer networking is important. It's really important to learn those things. But human networking, the human part of anything, is going to be essential throughout whatever career you do. So continue to develop that side of things. I like to call it the carbon-based. We got the computer-based networking. We also have the carbon-based networking. The carbon-based things are still important, I think. Maybe.
Well, I think it's really difficult for a lot of people to be advocates of themselves, whether it's they're trying to be humble, or they don't want to seem egotistical, or whatever it happens to be. Or some people are they're not driven that way. Their personality just doesn't work that way sometimes. So that's where I would suggest people be an advocate for yourself, but reach out to people that can advocate for you, because you can find those people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, Rod, it's, hey, aw shucks, just doing my job, all these things that I thought that was just my job. But then, sometimes people are really, really good at it, and they, make a mountain out of a molehill. And, there's TRP 8472 has looking for top 3 tips. Top 3 tips, I would say: work on the networking side of things. Learn how systems work. I like to use a 3-step process. Andy. Hey, Andy. Nice to meet you virtually. 3-step process: learn how something works, learn what breaks it, and then learn what you can do to prevent people from breaking it. Whatever system you're looking at, apply kind of that concept to it. And, try to learn something every day. Learn something every day. Maybe it's something stupid. You think it's stupid or small, but you're continuing to build. You're continuing to build your knowledge, and a lot more now than you did a year ago or 2 years ago, and you continue to improve those skills. And watch this podcast. Watch this every time it comes up. You put it on first.
Okay. Yeah, there's always something, some little nugget, I think, that we at least include in every episode. I think there's at least something. There's some nonsense, but there's also some nuggets of information periodically. I do want to mention to our listeners, though, that we just this past week put a spot on our site where you can actually look at the show schedule. We haven't done that in the past. We kind of just left it as kind of a guessing game. so you can go to the site and figure out what's coming up, because we always knew, we just didn't want to tell anybody else for whatever reason, I guess. But because our shows fill up extremely quickly, and if you're listening and you're a partner or you're someone that has something that you want to share, help us with the recruiting thing, help us with these soft skills, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to have you on the show as well.
Chaos podcasting.
Oh, I love it.
There you go.
Yeah. So with that, I guess we'll bid adieu. And thank you once again, Mike and Ray. Thank you so much for being friends with Mike, to be able to advocate for him coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Rod and Ed and Brody and littlest Brody, for bringing me into the podcast family. And Mike, or Professor Zambotti, thank you for being an amazing teacher and an inspiration, and for being my friend.
All right.
Anytime.
We will talk to you all next week.